I've been working on my personal lawnmower today. I've been mowing with it the past couple of years. It's one I bought for 50 bucks and had the locked up Kohler Command engine, and I freed the engine up and been using it to cut with just to see how long the engine would go, and never had a problem out of it. The motor's not knocking and the engine's working great. Pretty sweet tractor. It's got the big wheels and tires, hydrostatic transmission. I believe I've showed this one in some of my other videos. But I was unloading it the other day and the front tire fell off the ramp and the deck hit the ramp and the deck fell off. I've already straightened these brackets out once here on the back. This is a GT5000 54-inch deck, the same thing as most of the Craftsman 5000 decks with a quick disconnect coupler. I have a problem with these ears bending out and then the hooks pop off the brackets hanging out from under the tractor and the deck falls off. These little handles that slide in there like that, I've got them out right now because I'm changing it. They're normally in like that and they pull out. But when I get those welded on there, it should keep my ears from bending over and letting the deck fall off again. I was also doing some other work to this deck because the spindles broke. That one broke where it mounts down. Two of the bolts, the little tabs broke off where they bolt through. Let me see if I can find them real quick. The other spindle, those broke off right there where the bolts go through on the bottom side. So I had a deck that went over there in the floor, came off the tractor and I was parting out, and you have to be careful because the bolts break off. The ones I took off this deck, the bolts were seized and they broke off in the housing, which didn't matter because the housing was broken. Luckily the deck there in the floor that I was taking the other spindles off of actually had newer spindles already on it, so they hadn't seized, the bolts hadn't seized into the aluminum yet. I was able to get them all out without breaking any off. This is my personal project and for a personal mower, and I kind of got the idea maybe I'd show this fix since I don't do a whole lot of Craftsman repairs. Your Craftsman tractors are a little bit better quality. Well, the AYP built tractors are a little better quality than the newer, some of the new ones are MTD built, which MTD's the company that builds Cub Cadet, Toro, some Toro, Yard Machines, Yardman, Yard Pro, Troy built, a bunch of stuff. You just have to do a little research and find out what all, but they're garbage. I wouldn't buy any of them. AYP are also homeowner machines, not commercial, but they're very good quality. This one has the greasable spindle on top of both, all three of the main mandrels, and I went ahead and pumped the spindles up since they came off a deck that I wasn't using before, and they held about 120 pumps in my hand grease gun. So I hand pumped about 120 pumps in each one before I seen the grease coming out down there. You can kind of see it coming out the bottom end. And then I went ahead and used my needle and my little grease gun that I keep the needle on all the time. I use that to stick in the idler pulleys to get a little grease in those bearings. I grease this one every time I take the deck off, so I've never had any problems out of these bearings. They get greased at least once a year. You can't see here, let me get a light. I've hammered it back down, so it did have a gap right there. I hammered it back down so I can weld all that back up, and it ought to be rocking and rolling when I get done. I'll come back and show you when I get to that point. I've got my brackets welded back up now. I ended up finding small cracks on all 4 of the welds holding the bracket down, the original bracket to the deck. And then I've also got my homemade supports welded in there to keep the ears from bending over and causing the deck to come loose from the tractor. I'm about ready to stick this back under the tractor and go give it a test. I also wanted to show you some extra work I did underneath where the corners of the deck on these big 54-inch decks rub the ground. You can kind of see on this corner here that they touch where the rest of the deck doesn't seem to rub. Of course, you can adjust some of that out, but all these 54-inch decks that I've ran, I have a problem with the corners rubbing. It ends up wearing your baffles out on the lips of the deck. I'll flip it over and show you the underside, what it looks like. I've redone the front corners on both sides. I've added some extra pieces of metal and wrapped them around the lip of the deck so that they won't dig into the ground. And then I ran a couple extra welds across the bottom of them just to hopefully make it last a little longer so they don't wear out so fast. This will usually last a year or 2 for me, and I run my deck right on the ground, so these corners are always rubbing. And then because I'm pretty abusive to this deck, I went ahead and welded all my baffle. You see it all the way across here, I've welded. And then this center one is up a little higher, so I don't have as much problem with those, but I went ahead and welded it in a few places, and I welded my bolts as well so they can't come out. And then I've added another piece right here. This side wasn't wearing as bad, so I didn't put any extra welds on it. It was just about halfway through the metal. The other side was completely through the metal in a few places. I just want to show a view on these 54-inch AYP decks, how close the outside edges come to the ground compared to the center of the deck. The front lifts up quite a bit, and there's a good 2 to 3 inch gap there, and then you see that other side come back down to the ground. That's why I have a problem with these rubbing off. I've fixed a lot for other people as well. They usually end up rubbing the ground until the bolts come loose. You can see that one there, I welded it from the bottom side, but that bolt was already, the head was wore off and it was starting to push it through. But now it's tight and all that's welded, so I'm not worried about it. Just rub it for another 2 or 3 years, and then I'll check on it again. Weld a little more down there, that way I don't end up destroying my deck. I've had several of these decks where the whole lip was wore off and it was just, the only thing left was this part of the shell right here, and there was nothing left of that lip hanging off the edge there. Then it starts affecting the strength of your deck shell. Now I'm about to slide this bad boy under Big Red, and I wanted to show y'all the process. Okay, just the 2 pins on the quick connect to get the back of the deck on. Now I gotta line this up on the front. Well, I got her all fixed up. The welds did real well and deck fit back on perfect. I just went and test cut and it cut nice and even. While I had it off, I sharpened the blades and greased everything up so it ran smooth and cut great. Best $50 tractor I've ever had. Thanks for watching.